the best sync briefs and the best commercial material is the writing that comes from your artist brain. So I think the reason why the Valorant game really worked, like the song for the Valorant game, is because I approached it from an artist perspective.
Hi, I'm Cabrea. I work at Downtown Music Publishing as an A&R and sync marketing director.
Hey, I'm Madge. I'm a songwriter, recording artist, and producer.
Hey, Madge. How's it going?
Hi, Cabrea. I'm good. How are you?
I'm good. I love your headphones. I feel like every time I
Thank
see you, there's
you.
like another character.
They're natural. I
Yeah,
grew them myself.
amazing. Yeah, I would love to talk to you honestly, like as your publisher, it's been so exciting just to see the way you've kind of paved your way through this industry and specifically in video games, like what you've done with Valorant and some original music with them has been so cool to watch just from the sidelines. So I would love to talk to you a little bit about that. Um, yeah, I mean, I guess like as a creative, as a artist and a songwriter and a producer, how do you approach writing for sync or for a video game versus writing for your own artist project?
Right. So I've thought about this before actually on my own. And as an artist, I tend to approach a song much differently than as a briefed sync writer. That said, what I find is the best sync briefs and the best commercial material is the writing that comes from your artist brain. So I think the reason why the Valorant game really worked, like the song for the Valorant game, is because I approached it from an artist perspective, if that
Do you
makes
want to?
sense. Yeah.
Yeah, that totally makes sense. I think I feel like did Riot Games or Valorant kind of reach out to you because they were already fans of your artist project? Did you kind of come into it with them knowing Madge, or did you kind of just sell them on Madge and the song all at once?
I think it was a hybrid of both, actually. From what I'm aware, there were people on the Riot Games music creative team who were aware of my music, which is amazing. And
Mhm.
I was asked to pitch on this by an agent, and in that process, other people learned who I was based on my pitch, and it was a combination of having my foot in the door a little bit through my own artist presence on the internet, and then getting to know them and finding a very nice, happy, collaborative home in that experience.
Very cool. I would love to hear like what was that collaboration like and how it differs from like again writing something for your artist project. Like you submitted a demo, walk me through that process. Just specifically with Valorant, we can use that.
Right. I mean, something that Valorant had in common with every kind of brief situation I've been in is that when you write to brief, it's a longer process than writing for yourself. There's something uh true of all brief writing, which is generally there's always going to be many, many edits. And you're going to be making those edits not to your own tastes, but to the taste of an entire committee. Writing to Brief has a bad reputation because of this, but I will say that my experience with Riot Games music was a very creative, collaborative one. That even though sometimes I was interacting and uh, incorporating feedback from people who were not giving musical notes, the end result ended up being something that felt like it still came from this very deep musical part of me. Um, and something that I'm very happy with. But yeah, I think the main difference is that you're going to be seeing a lot of edits and you're going to be tweaking the final product to many tastes and not just your own.
Was that what was that balance like for yourself or as like was there an ego involved with like receiving some of these edits or did you feel like you had to like let something go in order to like jump into this collaborative
There is
part?
always there. Yeah, I know that's
Yeah.
there is always an aspect of letting go of your ego when you're not making a song that's fully your own. And uh, there's something very positive about that, though. I think like when you are able to take away the preciousness and the self-importance of your own ideas, I kind of almost think you can crack open a creative side of your process that you wouldn't have access to otherwise. I personally love getting really specific direction and frameworks in which to build songs. Uh, it it almost streamlines the process and like laser focuses what I am able to do.
Hmm. Yeah, I
Yeah.
can imagine I can imagine how intimidating it must be to just sit down and be like, I need to write a song today. Let me just pick from all the emotions and inspiration, like versus sitting down and having kind of a parameters to think about. Like I can imagine that's a little bit freeing and it kind of like takes out some guesswork,
I
maybe.
love structure. It's like
Yeah.
I feel like artists are very much children um in the world of the industry, and you will always see this in children. Children love structure. They might want to like push up against it and be like, "No, I don't want to take a nap." But they push as far as they can, right? And then they end up being very safe in that framework. So, contrary to popular belief, I sometimes think that very clear sync briefs gives you something to push up against, and in many
Mhm.
ways, you end up feeling kind of safe and taken care of in that space. And the pushing is, I think, beneficial for the other side, for the mommies and the daddies on the sync brief side.
Well, I mean, working in sync, I've worked in sync for 10 years, and I have to agree with you that I think the best music for sync that I've seen, like I've overseen a lot of this, has an artist perspective to it. It doesn't feel, it's pushing up against those walls, but in a really um, smart and creative way so that it doesn't feel too formulaic or um like like we see a lot of this and ads and that they'll have these parameters, but by adding in an artistic voice, by pushing those edges, I think it gives it that extra like cool factor edge, even if it's just a little bit, that often is the song that eventually gets chosen and then people might connect to.
Yeah, yeah. Video game
Yeah.
writing has really been like in the past 2 years, it's been one of the highlights of my career for sure.
Yeah, I would love to hear because I know you have experience writing for um, advertising as well. I would love to hear what is different about writing for video games as opposed to other media types when it comes to the sync world.
Yeah. Okay. So one of the main clear differences is that in advertising, you're writing to a theme or a vibe. Usually, you're going to be writing to keywords. Whereas in game writing, you're going to be writing to narrative. You're going to be writing to character. You're going to be writing to something very specific, maybe a fantasy lore. Like you're going to be writing to something that has a depth of creativity that advertising typically doesn't have. When I
Hmm.
wrote for Valerant, I wrote the theme song for the new agent. So in Valorant, you play as an avatar, uh, and it's called an agent. And I
Yeah.
wrote the song for Clove. So when I was writing that, unlike advertising, where you'll be like, where you'll be given uh guidelines like write something uplifting, revolutionary, girl power. Writing for
Hmm.
Clove was like butterflies, clocks, spirit world, uh, uh, fluidity in between realms, and young punk, but in the future slash maybe the past. And so it was like this very brain stretching and yet also specific exercise. I loved it. It was deeply inspiring to me.
Yeah, wait, that's so cool. So were you able to when you were because it was a new agent, right? So it had
Yeah.
not existed. So you really got to kind of create this anthem that would carry this character and introduce this character and then keep like carry their narrative. That's so cool.
I got to
Yeah.
work with the agent developers, with the people that were coming up with the lore and how this agent was going to be presented. It was I really got some of the first looks at this character.
Mhm.
It was so exciting. And of course I signed like a million NDAs, and I was even scared to tell my mom about it, and actually they didn't even tell me the name of the agent until after it was released because they were so scared of, I mean, obviously, and I've learned since the Valorant fans are, they go very hard, they go very deep, and they find you
Like it.
online.
Yeah. Yeah. Okay, cool. Well, we can talk about the fans and stuff a
Uh-huh.
little bit because I am so interested in that. But um wait, that's so I know you were on under NDAs and stuff, so maybe there's some things that you can't tell us. Obviously the game's out and the agent is up for, people know it now. But was there some lore, or were you able to ask questions of like backstory, or did you kind of come up with your own backstory to kind of help embody this character and write this song?
I was given very specific lore. And
Okay.
luckily, which I think Riot Games was genius for, there was a lot of overlap between me as a person and Clove as a character. And I'm sure much of this was intentional when they were seeking out artists who would resonate with this agent. But no, I did not. I mean, I definitely infused personal details and tones and textures that represent me, and they happened to align with Clove. But no, I was presented with very specific backstory, their bedroom, their tastes in music. It was very fleshed out and
Okay.
became more so throughout the process.
Wait, that's so cool. Is there any like little tidbit that you remember that really spoke to you of like any like little
Ooh,
thing that was in the
okay.
room or something?
I'm trying to think about, okay, there, I mean, I feel like we can talk about this because it was released, but in the visual of Clove's bedroom, something that I thought was so cute is that if you look in the background, there were these little fairy lights hanging on the wall in the shape of butterflies. And I think I've literally in one of my bedrooms before had little like butterfly fairy lights hanging on the wall. And there's just something so intensely cute about Clove. And Clove is a badass. Oh, I don't know if I can say that. Clove is a baddie. Clove, like, they're their capabilities, their powers are very cool. They can stop time, but there was something very like tender about this agent
Hmm.
that I immediately was like, oh, they just look like a baddie because that's a defense mechanism.
Yeah. Oh, I
Really, they're
love
just sweet. They're like
yeah.
butterfly fairy lights, you know?
Deep down when they're in their safe place in their room,
Yeah.
it's sweet. Yeah.
Yeah,
Um,
exactly.
yeah, so you've touched upon like a ton of collaboration that went into working on this project. Is there any advice you have for people when working with like a studio or a music supervisor, an agency, like, do you have any advice when it comes to that collaboration with, people that might not be musicians or they're representing the client and they're the expert of the product or the game or the narrative that you're writing to. Um, yeah, I'm just curious how you go about that type of collaboration with these people or if you have any advice.
Yeah, I think that's a great question. I think my biggest advice is to shift your mindset from wow, it's so hard to work with non-musicians to whoa, this is so cool that I'm exploring music from a completely different perspective. This, you see this time and time again, and it's one of the most favorite like war stories between working musicians is like, oh, I was talking to the sync team and they told me to make the song sound more warm, and we're all like, ah ha, ha, ha. They aren't musicians, what does that even mean? And it's like it's easy to gripe about this and to see it as making your life harder when actually I think that there's value in just switching up your perspective there and being like, whoa, how do I make this sound warmer? How do I explore this? And I would wager that the sound that comes out is going to be a lot different than if they gave you the feedback of raise the 2K hertz frequency or whatever, whatever would be making it sonically warmer. Like, yeah, so I
Yeah.
think the advice there would be a perspective shift rather than like any kind of change of skills.
Yeah, I love that because honestly, as a sync as a sync professional, I have absolutely been guilty of being that person that's like, how do you make this sound warmer? I think it's because like sync in itself and like the way we come at the music is it's so it's about the storytelling of it and like the feelings of it. And obviously, I'm sure as a songwriter, that's how you also come to music, but also you understand the whole technical side of it. And it's like someone speaking to you in just like the storytelling or like the adjectives versus the technicality of how music is created. So it's nice to hear that. I always try to preface that kind of feedback with, I'm going to tell you what I think, and I'm sorry that this isn't
Cabrea, you're in a safe space. You can make that, you can ask for the music to be warmer anytime you want. I encourage it.
Yeah, yeah. Oh, it's been so good talking to you. So, do you have also, I mean, like on the topic of advice, do you have any advice, just practicality of writing for games? Is there any like, I don't know, little bits?
Mm. Okay, well, I would say that I've been lucky enough to be kind of in like the gamer and gaming adjacent community since the inception of my music. That's just been the community who listens to my music. And while I'm not particularly a gamer in the classic sense, I enjoy video games and the world of it and the aesthetic of it. And I would say that if you are trying to write for video games, then you really need to be immersed by it because there is a specific sound, there is specific language, there are specific memes. And unless you understand this, I don't think you're going to be able to tap into the heart of it. It probably will feel like writing too brief. Um, yeah. So, I mean, I've been lucky enough with the Riot Games music collaboration to feel like I'm in touch with a very living, breathing community. And a huge part of that is just being immersed in that community for, 8 years.
Yeah, I mean, it's like it starts as a consumer. That's how you know what kind of like you as a gamer might, you know what you like to hear. And
Hmm.
yeah, it's like understanding the medium that you're pitching towards. I think
Yeah.
that is is excellent advice. I think that makes a lot of sense. Um, yeah, I mean it's been really fun talking to you. Yeah, I mean, just to give a little recap of everything we went over, but just the way your creative process is different, writing for video games versus ads or writing for yourself. It was like it's so illuminating to hear that, and also finding that balance of like maintaining your artist perspective while writing to brief and ways that that actually helps um, you actually get the job and the way it actually differentiates what you're writing, which is really cool. And how important it is to build trust and to collaborate with the people that are licensing this music. And I think it's really cool that that perspective shift, I think, is so helpful. Um, and like letting go of that ego and saying this is really a collaboration and how do I interpret what they're doing? And maybe they bring out something really interesting that you wouldn't have done before. And yeah, and some really good practical advice. Thank you so much.
Thank you, Cabrea. You're the best.
This is so fun.
Yeah. Happy gaming, y'all.